Hello and welcome to Bat Flips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. We are a week into the Major League Baseball season and we're coming together to overreact to everything that's happened so far. Joining me for this fine adventure is Darius Austin. Darius, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited that baseball is back, and I think we'll have a lot of fun with the discourse that's been happening over the last few days. It didn't
No
turn
doubt
out
we
for us
will.
to have the first truly stupid story, did it? Like literally 2 days into the season, to have an utterly ridiculous news cycle. It's been great.
And joining the two of us is the master of discourse, Rob Navarra. Rob, how are you?
I'm I'm loving the. I mean, we're going to come to them. I'm sure the ludicrous bats. I'm loving it. I can't wait.
It wouldn't be the start of a Major League Baseball season without some kind of odd scandal, would it? So, yes, we are going to get into that, obviously, at some point later in the pod. And we're also going to cover some of the extensions that have taken place in the last few days, do a couple of too good, too bad. But I think we're going to kick it off with some classic, old-fashioned, early season overreactions, baby. It's been a week of baseball, not even at this point. So obviously there are some really silly stat lines out there already that people are being very rational and calm about, as baseball fans tend to be. So I thought maybe we could spin through a few of the maybe higher profile struggles or successes early in the season and see how much on the scale of, I don't know, 1 to 10 we're believing or overreacting to this start to the season. So let's kick it off with maybe the one that's been catching people's eye the most. And that is the early season struggles of poor Rafael Devers, who had a bit of a spring in his kind of giving it the big one about not wanting to be moved off third base, then moving off third base, and then getting injured, and then being told he's basically going to be full-time DH, at least for a while he recovers from his injury. And he has responded to being told he is now the designated hitter by deciding not to hit. I think to this point he is 0 for 19 with something like 14 strikeouts. I may even be selling him short on the strikeouts there. It's been a horrendous start to the season for poor Rafi. So yeah, answer me this, Rob. Will Rafael Devers ever get a hit again?
No, he's done, cooked, finished. That's game over for Mr. Devers. Obviously he's going to get a hit or two, but you know what? We've seen Chris Davis, like he was insane, and then all of a sudden, bam, gone. And you know what? He's kind of a big guy. He's known as a bit of a hitter. Could be it. So I think the sulking has been fun. I've really enjoyed watching the sulking. He looks like a chastised 4-year-old sat on the bench at the moment. I can totally understand if I was doing that bad at my job, I would look pretty bad and sulky when I'm sat at work as well. So. Obviously, there's going to be some regression to the mean, but some things break people, and he really, really does not seem to have taken well to the whole Bregman situation and third base thing. So when he can get over his sulking, maybe, but these highly paid man-child athletes, who knows? Maybe he can't get over it. Maybe this is the Rafi Devers we've got from now on.
I guess we have to caveat it with all of these things. Short samples, small sample size. This is basically a 5-game stretch that we're judging him based on here. But where's the fun in caveating stuff, right? And I think Ross did a little bit of digging in our group chat into the worst starts to the season in baseball history. And I think we have to go back pre-Universal DH to actually a San Francisco Giants pitching legend who I think outdoes Devers for worst start to the season, or at least did before his latest 0 for 4 day. Darius, should we genuinely be concerned about this, especially with a strikeout number where it is? It seems like he just isn't picking up the ball in a way that most major league hitters do, or is this just a very weird slump that is magnified by the fact it's the first week of April?
I think we're arriving at not just small sample. This is extremely concerning territory because everybody has these 0
Yes,
for 15,
Darius.
0 for 20, and 6 of them are line drives straight to the shortstop. That just happens. But to have this many strikeouts, and I think I saw it was Brooks Gate Twitter account pointed out that also the last 4 games of last season, I think he had 11 strikeouts and 1 hit in those games as well. So he's running a well over 50% strikeout rate for sort of his last 10 games, which is very, very high for anybody. Even Joey Gallo would be like, this is too many strikeouts. So that's a worry. Now, whether it's because he's hurt, because there's something wrong with his swing, or because he's just throwing his toys out the pram that Alex Bregman gets to play third base better than he does, I don't know. But it is concerning at this point. I think you don't expect a player of this quality to strike out this often. If it was just ground outs or line outs, whatever, I would say don't care. But I am starting to get a little bit like, yeah, has the DH thing got in his head? Is he doing it on purpose just to make a point? I don't know what's going on, but it's reached the level for me that, yeah, I'm worried that something is wrong and we're not going to get, the usual Rafael Devers, who's been a very good, very consistent hitter for a very long time now.
I'll be honest, if Darius is worried, I'm worried. I was just expecting you to be the voice of reason and tell us that we're overreacting and it's only a few games and stop being so silly.
We are overreacting, to be clear, but I've never seen a stretch like this from anybody. It doesn't. Now the pitches don't hit. It doesn't happen anymore. So it is pretty remarkable for somebody as good as Devers, who's career 126 OPS plus hitter, to strike out 15 times in 19 at bats is kind of insane.
I think he needs a silly bat.
Maybe he does need a silly bat. We're going to get onto that at some point. But yeah, no, not good for Devers.
Keep burying that lead.
I've seen we need to keep listening for a little bit, get that ad revenue in. We've seen people doing the old side-by-sides of, Devers last year, Devers this year. Is he looking bigger? Is he out of shape? I don't think Devers ever had a small derriere, did he? But maybe there is some truth to the fact that he's a little bit larger than he was last year. So it'll be interesting to see if that escalates into anything more as the struggles go on. But I'll just leave that bombshell there and move on to the very next overreaction, which is more in the positive direction. Darius, I'll come to you first for this one. Will the Dodgers ever lose this season? Will they break the single game win record? Will they do it in August? Will the Padres also never lose again? NL West is off to a hot start.
It'd be on brand, wouldn't it, if the Padres won 120 games, but the Dodgers won 125. So Prella still doesn't get a division title. I could believe that. Probably they will lose at some point. I'm not going to predict the 162-0 just yet. But if you were a Padres or Diamondbacks fan coming into this season, going, "Oh, maybe the Dodgers have an off year and win 92 games," I think you're already a bit underwhelmed now, a bit disappointed, kind of having to accept that they haven't played that well either. They haven't looked like, there's been Sasaki's looked pretty shaky, and Mookie Betts lost half his body weight and they're still 7-0. So it's concerning, especially when you consider that Ohtani's going to come back and pitch at some point, and they've got all these other arms who are going to come off the injured list. There's a lot there, and they're already 7-0, and it's quite difficult to see how they're not going to win 100 plus games already.
I like it. An unimpressive 7-0. Bored.
Yeah.
Be better.
Be better, yeah.
Rob, anything stood out to you from what you've seen from Dodgers so far? They've obviously, I agree. The rotation hasn't necessarily looked that strong. And obviously, Betts was hampered for the first few games. Freeman doesn't necessarily look 100%, but the wagon just keeps on rolling, doesn't it?
I think all the caveats that are being applied are Dodgers caveats. We expect the Dodgers to be exceptional, winning everything. And let's face it, they've already won the same. The gap they've got is already approaching a division-winning, sort of lead. All right, the Padres are right up their chuffs, but to go 7-0 and have 4.5 games over some of your competitors at this stage means they've already sort of put that gap in. The chase is already on. We're less than a week in, and we've already got air in between them and their rivals. So I think 162-0 is a touch of a stretch, but could they do another 30 wins before they lose a game? Yeah, they could. They really, really could. This could be sewed up and done and dusted if they keep going at this rate, with the rest of the division not all chipping in at full rate. They could be done and dusted by the end of May.
Well, let's hope not, for the sake of an exciting NL West race. And the other teams do look good. I mean, the Padres are 6-0. The D-backs have looked lively so far. The Giants even look like they've got a pulse this year, Darius. We're not going to talk about the Rockies, but that's 4 good teams in the division. So, maybe if they do slip up at any point, then there's a chance for other teams in that division. But it concerns you that the guys who would need to be bad this year for them to have a bad year, like Edman, like Hernandez, actually look as good, if not better, than they did last year. So not a great start for Dodgers haters. A great start at the plate, though, for a certain Eugenio Suarez. This is a fun early season stat line. Eugenio Suarez has 5 hits so far this season. That is not particularly notable. All 5 of them have been home runs. I think he leads the majors with those 5 home runs, including a dramatic one. Was it last night against the Yankees? Go-ahead grand slam. This is kind of a dunk on the Reds, I guess, who let him go for peanuts, but also Eugenio Suarez probably can't go, 50 hits, 50 home runs, but this is kind of the hitter he is now, Darius. Is this just a bit of a peek into one of these, new 3 true outcome players, or is it just a funny, quirky opening season stat line?
Yeah, he's always been a streaky guy. We had an extreme first half, second half split from him last year. I think he had, 300 points of OPS difference between the two. He is this type of player. Yeah, he's got a lot of power. And when he gets on these hot streaks, he's really, really good. I don't think it's going to take a super long time for pitchers to say, oh, this is what he's weak against this season. There's a big hole in that swing over there. And we might be here in June saying, why is Eugenio Suarez gone 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts in his last 5 games? But yeah, he's a good power hitter. He's always been a good power hitter. And as long as the batting average doesn't collapse, then you can certainly live with that. But yeah, ride it while it lasts, D-backs fans.
I was wrong, wasn't I? It was the Mariners that gave him away for nothing. The Reds did have him at one point, but let's dunk on the Mariners instead. Rob?
I mean, look, he's been there before, hasn't he? Didn't he take a home run title off of Trout a few years ago? Am I thinking of the wrong person? That's not off brand for me. I'm pretty sure he had a home run title, didn't he? In maybe 2019, maybe 2021.
I don't think he led the league. He did hit a lot of home runs that year, but I don't believe he led the league.
Oh, okay. For the sake of the podcast, I'm not going to sit here and Google silently whilst
I will find out for you.
Thank you. Either way, good. If he didn't win the home run title, I'm pretty sure he was right there. So, you know what? The guy's got power. He's demonstrated it historically. Like he had at least chasing the league lead for home run. I know he did. And so, yeah, he could do it. We haven't yet seen what is the score with the ball this year. Perhaps he'll change to a silly bat just to bring it up for a third time for Ben to have to put it down and make it a later thing. So perhaps he's got a silly bat. Who knows? But I think he could be the real deal here. Absolutely. Let's knee jerk. Let's overreact and say Eugenio Suarez is going to rival Aaron Judge this year for the home run lead.
You're sort of partially correct, Robin, that he did hit more home runs than Mike Trout, but he was in the wrong league because he was on the Reds, so he couldn't have taken a AL title away from Trout. Regardless,
did he not?
Regardless, Pete Alonso hit 53
that
season. So, but he was
49 was pretty impressive. Yeah,
49
actually,
is good.
Looking at Suarez's page now, he has all. In my mind, he's always been so streaky and inconsistent, and that's kind of been from year to year. But actually, he always ends up putting up like pretty good power hitting stat lines, doesn't he? At least since that kind of power surge from the Cincinnati days. So maybe I deserve to give Suarez more credit than he deserves. Regardless, probably not going to be an MVP candidate, but a very good hitter who, Mariners fans might regret letting walk. Our final overreaction then is another bad one. It's the Atlanta Braves. Certain people on their predictions podcast thought the Atlanta Braves would be the best team in the National League this year. And those certain people might be feeling a bit silly right now, which I will not comment on. But it's not been a great start to the season for the Braves for reasons beyond just their record that, again, we might get to later. I'm really keeping people hanging here, aren't I? But this has not looked good for Atlanta. Again, probably a bit too early to overreact. But, Rob, are the Braves falling apart at the seams? Is this the start of an epic Atlanta Braves collapse?
Yes.
Love it. Couldn't agree more.
I still firmly believe that the Braves are the second best team in the National League. They've done this over the last few years. They've blown really, really hot and cold. And when they've been blowing cold, you can sort of see they should have been blowing hot. There's something not going quite right here, but it's kind of out of their reach. It wasn't really their fault that they've had the bad. Now it's been injuries. They've had like a random down year a couple of times in the middle of their stretch. Now, if you go back and look at the beginning of the Braves run that they're currently on to where they are now. The aggregate is fantastic. They've been brilliant across the board. And and not much has changed with this team. All they've done is they've grown into their ages a little bit more, and they've got some more experience. So I do genuinely still believe that the Braves should be a fantastic team. However, tragedy starts to befall them. Maybe it's the NL East, maybe it's the Mets sort of shrugging off their lol Mets vibes and a little bit of it splashing over onto another team. I don't know, but the Braves should be absolutely fine. There is nothing about this team that says that they should be doing it. They should be smashing it up, and of course they will. Of course they're going to come back. So no, I don't think the Braves are cooked. I think they're having another iffy start to a year. But come the end, they're going to be right there. They're going to be right there. There's no way. Darius, do you have any thoughts on the Braves whilst Ben is doing some technical?
I think, they're not cooked. I think you can probably, given the information we have, that Reynaldo Lopez is going to be on the IL for several months, if not missing the entire season. That Jurickson Profar has got himself suspended for PEDs. That we know they have lost 6 games already without any wins. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to say, I thought the Braves were a 92-win team, and now I think they're an 89-win team. I think that's okay to say. I don't think this means the Braves are now a 76-win team. But we've seen these starts of the season before, and, they can, with the Cardinals a few years back, spring to mind, I think, where it was like, the Cardinals are going to come out of it. And they didn't, they never really got there. So that's kind of how I feel about Atlanta. And in this division where you've got the Phillies and you've got the Mets, who are both going to be pretty competitive, it doesn't help to have 6 losses on the ledger with no wins. It's not good. So yeah, I'm not worried. They've got a quality lineup. They've still got plenty of good pieces in that rotation, but it's okay to downgrade a little bit on the expectations, I think.
Yeah, and they've got stuff coming back, haven't they? Big style. I mean, we've got Acuna and we've got Strider coming back, and if you want to make up 6 wins, there's 6 wins and a shed load more just sat there ready to happen. So I don't think we can expect there to be an ongoing problem with the Braves here. Your point's well made. Drop a little bit, but don't take too much of your expectations of the Braves. These guys are the team we thought they would be. So in Ben's absence, I think we should move on as quickly as we can into the next bits and bobs of business. Was there anything else that sort of caught your eye on the overreaction trend, Darius, at the beginning of the season? Is there anything that you thought, maybe this is something, or hopefully this could continue? It might be a little bit fun. Was there anything you saw?
Well, I mean, I suppose the overreaction probably does lead us quite neatly into our next topic, which maybe we'll be allowed to talk about now, because that's the thing that's in my mind as the thing that people have been flipping out about, probably quite unreasonably when you consider all the facts of the situation. But are we allowed to have bat discourse now? Do you think we can sneak that in while Ben's trying to sort his technical issues out?
I think the fact that Ben can't actually say no anymore means that it's a very, very good time for us to start talking about the bats, which I wanted to talk about all along, because I think this is the best story we've had in baseball in a good few years. So those of you who have been buried on the moon and haven't seen anything, the New York Yankees, particularly, and let's be clear, not just the New York Yankees, have deployed a new style of bat. Oh my god, it's incredible. It's so different. Wait, no, they've just shaved a little bit off the end. Okay, so there is a new style of bat the Yankees have had. They ran into the Milwaukee Brewers to start the season, and they broke the record for their team for home runs in the game with, was it 9 home runs they hit in the end? And then they've continued to hit afterwards. It's been fantastic all the way. So Yankees bats. Darius, is it real? Is it real?
I think to the extent that they have identified something about players like Anthony Volpe, who was hitting the ball with a different part of the bat than the barrel very often, then yeah, I can believe that that's real. People seem to think this is something that's brand new. These bats were being used last year, I think maybe even the year before. Giancarlo Stanton was hitting home runs with this bat in the playoffs, and nobody said anything.
Warning!
It just so happened. I think Adley Rutschman the day before had hit 2 home runs on these bats, but because the Yankees came out and hit 9 home runs against the Brewers, everyone was like, well, the Yankees are cheating, look at this brand new thing. So I don't think, there's nothing illegal about. They've just moved some of the wood
Yet.
from the end of the bat to slightly further down the bat. If you were the kind of player who was already hitting the ball on the barrel, I think it would be bad for you. And I think there's probably ways that pitchers might say, oh, you know what, I'll pitch a little bit more outside, and this guy's not going to be able to get the thick part of the bat on the ball so easily. So it doesn't seem like a game-breaking thing that's going to, ruin baseball or anything. But I can believe that there are players like Volpe who are going to benefit from doing this, at least in the short term, while pitchers figure out what to do.
And we've seen a few players, as you say, as a few others, Ellie De La Cruz, Junior Caminero have all come out and said that they've had some success with the bat as well. Torpedo bat, though. Are we happy with torpedo bat? Ben, you seem to be back in the room.
I am.
What's your take on torpedo bat as a phrase?
Can't believe I left you alone for 5 minutes and you went straight to the torpedo bats. This is unbelievable. Excellent hosting work from me there, being unable to hear anything you said for that 5 minutes. I think torpedo bats make sense. Like, I see where the names come from. They look a bit like a torpedo, and it's probably more fun than, I don't know what else we call it, odd bats or Yankees bats as they were the first day. So I don't have a problem with it, but it sounds like you think that we should be doing better.
I just think a little bit of creativity. Like, everything's a torpedo and it's slightly sleek looking. I mean, couldn't we, like, skittle bat? It looks more like a skittle to me. And, like, torpedoes are too cool. I'm like, it's the bloody Yankees. Let's not... Come on. Let's, like, the butt plug bat. I don't care. Just something that's, like a different... Okay, I don't know why my head went straight there. That's not important right now. But, like, couldn't we have thought of something of that shape surely has other connotations other than a torpedo? I mean, come on. Let's brainstorm it a little bit before we settle straight on torpedo. Come on.
I don't think we need to brainstorm it anymore. I think butt plug bats has officially taken off. That's
I think
excellent.
the fact that you got to butt plug second, like on your list of ideas, says a lot.
Yeah,
really.
You've got to take it off quite carefully, though. Yeah, I mean, like these bats. I mean, the alternative is, of course, maybe the bats aren't doing all that much. Maybe the Brewers are just rubbish. They've not started well, and they've looked really awful. Perhaps it's just that. No.
The Yankees have certainly slowed down in their torpedo bat home run hitting since they weren't able to face Nestor Cortez and his 85-mile-an-hour fastballs. So that would probably seem to be part of it. Yes, I think it was probably exaggerated quite the impact of the butt plug bats, but we'll see. And it sounds like they're going to be going being much more widely used. I've had people in my Richmond baseball group chat asking if we can use them in our league. Are they now legal to use, anywhere, even at single A level? I can't imagine that a torpedo bat is the difference between, me being one of the, 1,000 worst players in baseball to suddenly being one of the only 500 worst baseball players in the UK. But hey, I will try anything at this point. So I'll come back to you in a few weeks once my butt plug arrives.
The league's gonna ban them, aren't they? If this continues this way, it's not going to persist, is it? Surely, Darius.
I think it will. Everything favours pitchers these days. Finally, something that makes hitters' lives a bit easier.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it will. So this is maybe a bad question to ask me, but I think the balance has been tilted towards pitching for a long time. People have been talking about, should we move the mound back? This is a much easier way of dealing with the offensive problem than moving the mound back. So I don't see why that they would change it unless for some reason games started taking 4.5 hours every night time because the offense had exploded, which, even that game didn't take that long. So it's fine.
Fair.
Should we move on? Let's do a quick trip to a few extensions that have been signed in recent days and cover those off, and then we'll get into too good, too bad. Two big moves from the Boston Red Sox, who have signed a couple of their exciting players to long-term deals. Very different deals though. First up, it was Garrett Crochet, their new ace starting pitcher, opening day starter, who signed a 6-year, $170 million extension to stay with the team for the next 6 seasons, or actually it may even be beyond that because I'm not sure if it adds on to the back of his current arbitration deal. But anyway, the opt-out will be for him after 2030, so he could potentially become a free agent again in 5 years' time. Next year would have been his final year of arbitration with the Red Sox. So signing him up a little bit earlier than planned, but I think this was something that they've been working on over the winter, ever since they acquired him effectively. And so good for Red Sox fans to get this done. It is an interesting deal, though. I mean, Garrett Crochet is a great pitcher. I don't think anyone would dispute that, but his track record is not enormous in the majors, and he also has had Tommy John surgery already. Was this a risky deal for the Red Sox? Do you see this one being one that they may come to regret if he in some way regresses, or if the elbow starts barking again? Or is this just, hey, when you've got an ace on your staff, you keep him on your staff?
It's a pitcher, so there's always a decent amount of scope for some regret. People have comped Crochet to Chris Sale before. You could also see it going that way, where people spent almost all of Chris Sale's career saying, "Oh, he's going to get hurt. He's too thin. He's not going to hold up. He's going to," and he's been one of the best pitchers of a generation. And yes, he's had the odd issue staying healthy, but it hasn't stopped him from being an immensely valuable pitcher when he's been on the field. And if the Red Sox get 140, 150 innings on average out of Crochet over the course of this deal, I think they'll be perfectly happy with that, because he's clearly, when he's on the mound, one of the top 4 or 5 pitchers in baseball. So I think it's the kind of thing you have to do. If you want to lock these players up early, you've got to give them this kind of deal to make them forego some of those years. And he's in his age 26 season, so it's not like we're signing somebody up at 31, 32 to maybe get some of those tail end of the career years you would expect, health permitting, that all of these are going to be really high quality. I don't think there's any doubt about the stuff. So yes, always potential for regret, but I think if you were going to lock up somebody young who's, not called Tarek Skubal or Paul Skeens, it would be Garrett Crochet, probably.
Yeah, it's hard to see this as a bad move for either side, really. For Crochet, it gets him the long-term security that you would want at his age. I guess there is risk. I'm just looking at his performance in previous years. I mean, Rob, he was obviously a full-time starter last year for the White Sox, did an amazing job. Certainly had the peripherals to show him as an ace in the league, but that was effectively his only full season in the majors. Before that, he'd pitched a little bit as a rookie in 2020 when he went straight from the draft effectively to the majors in the COVID season. He obviously started 2021, I think, in the rotation then, or possibly even spent that as a reliever, was going to then move to the rotation. Arm blew up. So last year was basically his first full year as a starting pitcher. He was obviously great, but this feels like a lot of money to commit to someone who, may not be the ace that they think he is. I'm surprised, I guess, that we take last year as the new norm with him. But I guess with pitchers, because we can see so much data about their pitch style, it becomes easier to think, well, that's just who he is now.
I mean, I think that's spot on. The question around pitchers these days is almost always going to be about their injuries, and it seems to be a flip of a coin, roll of a dice. However, if you look at what they're actually doing when they are healthy, that's what you're investing in. And he's also probably a bit of a benefit here of the really buoyant market for starters that we've seen this off season. In his average annual values, about 27, 28 million, and that's that's not far off where we've seen a lot of pitchers going this year. So I mean, you can't really argue it too far. We've always known he's been good at pitching when he is pitching. Will he stay on the field? Of course, with every pitcher, that's the flip of a coin. But for the pitcher you're buying, if he is pitching, yeah, spot on, no problem. You can't argue with the results in what he's done, and certainly in a poor situation in Chicago as well. He shone. So yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine. And plus, what the economy is very volatile. What is 28 million going to be worth in a couple of years? That could be peanuts, and there's very, very good chance of that being just peanuts very, very shortly with the way the dollar is going at the moment. So who knows? Fine, it's fine. Yeah, not a bad deal.
And if Red Sox were happy with that one, then Red Sox fans must have been delighted with the news this afternoon that they've taken a page out of the Alex Anthopoulos manual and signed up Christian Campbell, who's got a grand sum of about 20 Major League plate appearances to his name, to an 8-year, $60 million extension that can escalate to 10 years and $100 million. Obviously, he's literally just joined the majors, has got a couple of weeks' worth of plate appearances under his belt, was the minor league player of the year last year, is widely regarded as one of the best prospects in baseball, and as close to a sure thing, I guess, as you can get with a prospect, which isn't super close to a sure thing. But this is, an interesting deal. Obviously, the Red Sox believe in him, are going to invest in him now, but also for Campbell's sake, this is an awful lot less money than he could be getting on the open market, but he obviously wants to make sure he cashes in on these next few years when he otherwise wouldn't be earning much. I mean, who wins this, Darius? Do both sides win, or is this one where Campbell probably should have bet on himself and tried to hold out and hit free agency at a young age and cash in then?
Yeah, it's one of those where his profile, people are saying he should bet on himself, but when you have this little experience and somebody offers you this much money, his family's never going to have to worry about money ever again. Like that's a tempting thing to take. And our Bat Flips chats were alive this afternoon with all the mentions of the guys it didn't work out for, the Evan Whites, the Scott Kingerys, John Singleton. Remember John Singleton? He did eventually come back and play for the Astros, but they gave him money and he never even made the majors for years. They didn't get this much money, but we've seen a lot of these deals get signed early on and they haven't really panned out into anything at all. It's not even like those players were okay. Evan White didn't ever do anything for the Mariners. Scott Kingery is a below replacement level player, I believe. So, yeah, there is always risk with that when you haven't seen it. Campbell's rise has also been incredibly fast. People thought he was going to be a utility guy, basically, a year and a half ago, and then he was suddenly minor league player of the year. So there's always some risk that, that some of that goes away, that it was just a, hot minor league season, and in the majors he gets a bit more exposed. So I think it's a good deal for both sides. It seems fair to me. There is a great chance that in 3 or 4 years we're going, wow, Christian Campbell should not have done this because he's could be making so much more money. But also he's really, really young and he is going to get an opportunity to go to free agency still. They haven't signed out his whole career. So I think it's reasonable. I think it's a good deal for both sides, and we'll know in 5 or 6 years whether or not it's a bargain one way or another.
We will. And there was another deal done for a young, exciting hitter, one with slightly more major league experience in Jackson Merrill with the San Diego Padres, who obviously was phenomenal last year as a rookie. I think runner-up in Rookie of the Year voting. Has immediately established himself as one of the Padres' best players, and they've just signed him up to a 9-year extension worth, I think, $135 million base value. Could go up as high as $205 million with a 10th year option and with various performance escalators that could increase that base number. Exciting news that the Padres spent money. They hadn't been doing that for a long time. Great to see them lock up an exciting young player amidst all the carnage that's going on behind the scenes with ownership. And this again seems like a very good deal to me, at least for the Padres. We've seen him be very, very successful at the major league level. He is versatile. He's a great hitter. He's got speed. To lock someone like that up for 9 years at a relatively good discount seems like a good deal to me, Rob.
Good deal, yeah, absolutely. If you can bloody work out what the hell the deal's all about. This has got to be one of the most complicated deals I've ever seen. It's got options, like team options that turn into player options if he jumps up and down 3 times on a leg whilst waving his bat over his head and shouts, "Torpedo!" It's weird contract. This seems to be becoming a bit of a new norm, but either way, I mean, this guy was phenomenal last year. Like he is one of the best in the game at the moment, I reckon, and he's barely started. With Christian Campbell, you're saying, "Oh, is he going to do it?" Like, I think Merrill's done enough that you can say, yeah, this guy does have it. He really can do it. It's nice to see the Padres keep on with the spending now. They got a little bit more stability in their ownership situation. But yeah, it's a great deal. It's a great deal. It's fantastic. Again, people are going to start saying, "Oh, is this a good deal for him?" Let's just consider like it's a minimum of $135 million. I just think sometimes we need to sit back and think like, that is just a ludicrous sum of money. Just what would you do with $135 million? So yeah, young guy takes generational, like multi-generational wealth. It's a great deal for the Padres. It's a great deal for Jackson Merrill, and his family and his family's family. Like long after he's dead, this is still going to be fantastic for his family. So when you look at it like that, yeah, maybe there could be a little bit more at the back end if this guy does another good season. He could have asked for double, like very, very possible. He's that kind of player that you could say the 400-500 millions. But right now, no more risk to his life. That's it. Fantastic. Great. Take that cash. And same for the Padres. They got a fantastic player locked up for his best years. And so yeah, well done everybody. Everyone's a winner here.
I guess feasibly, both he and Campbell are young enough that even when these contracts end, they will still be able to cash in again, potentially with a 9-figure contract, depending on how productive they've been. So it's not as if this is now their career earnings sewn up. So that is a positive. One thing that came to mind for me, which I thought was interesting, I don't know if there's any precedent for this in baseball, but I know in the NFL, when players sign long-term contracts, especially when they do so at an early age, you often get to a point where 2-3 years into it, they then feel underpaid versus their market value, obviously, especially as salaries keep climbing. And players then kind of hold out and decide, hey, I'm actually not going to turn up this year and play for you in the spring training equivalent. In pre-season, I want my contract reworked so I earn more money because I think I deserve that. And even though, they're contracted to play on at what they're supposed to play on at, it often does work. There's no reason why teams couldn't just, so to speak, force them to play on it. But, they'll ask for a trade request. They'll do everything they can to kick and scream and try and get more money. That isn't really something that happens in baseball. I'm thinking, like a Ronald Acuna, who clearly is paid pennies on the dollar. There'd be no precedent for him to turn around to the Braves and go, I know I signed that deal, but actually I want more money now. Beyond the Braves wanting to keep him happy beyond the lifetime of that deal. Am I wrong in saying that, Darius?
No, I don't think so. I can't recall a specific occasion while I've been following the game. The player that comes to mind for me where this was sort of the case was Salvador Perez, but the Royals just gave him more money. I don't think he said, I'm not going to play. It's Salvi. I don't think you could keep him off the field if you tried. I think they were just like, yeah, this isn't really fair. You're worth so much more than this to us, so we're going to give you more money. Which I don't know if that says more about the Royals than baseball. I don't know if the fact the players don't hold out is just to do with, the general, this is how you play the game, kind of clubhouse sentiments that these players have been brought up in. I don't know enough about the legality of what would happen if they said, I'm not going to sit out, would the teams be able to do anything about that? Presumably, if Christian Campbell or Jackson Merrill is what the teams want them to be, they wouldn't actually do anything to the players anyway if they said they wanted to sit out. But presumably they would have some recourse legally in terms of the fact that the players have agreed to a contract, and if they are fit and healthy, they should be allowed to, say you're in the lineup, and if you don't play, then we will penalise you. Now, that might not really work if the player is saying, I want more money, It's only going to escalate the situation. But conceivably, I suppose the team could void the contract in that case, and then they get no money. At that point, then the Dodgers sign them, and everybody's upset. So, you're right. I don't know any case. Somebody is probably going to write in or tweet us or something and say, "Oh, this happened in the '80s with so and so," but I don't know of any occasions in which it has happened. Whereas it does happen in the NFL all the time, doesn't it?
I would imagine this happens behind closed doors. And there's been a couple. Garrett Crochet last year, he said he wasn't going to play in the postseason if he didn't get his extension. So that if he was traded, so that was the beginnings of this. You look back to Evan Longoria's extensions at points where he still had a long time left on his deal. Even Mike Trout had an extension on top of an extension. We don't know what's being said behind closed doors. It very well could be these sorts of chats happening. So I imagine they happen on some level. We just haven't got to the point whereby it's screaming it into the media yet. But Ronald Acuna absolutely should once he's fixed.
Yeah, I might be misremembering, and Red Sox fans yell at me if I am, but I feel like watching that documentary recently about their 04 team. Wasn't Nomar Garciaparra doing a little bit of that where he wasn't not playing, but he was kind of sulking, and there was a bit of an insinuation that he was half-arsing it on the field because he wanted an extension and wanted to be told he was going to be the future shortstop of the Red Sox. Again, I might be misremembering that a little, but I feel like you're right. There probably are ways in which this does manifest itself, just not in the version of I'm not going to play for you anymore. It's more behind closed doors or, grumping.
We had the Josh Hader, I'm not pitching multiple innings thing as well recently, which again, much more muted version, but we have had these.
Bubbling under the surface.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, let's crack on with Too Good, Too Bad then. We'll try and get through it quickly. I know we've been going for a while already. So let's start with, I don't know. What do you want to start with? Good or bad, Rob? You kick us off.
Let's start with good today, shall we? And I'm going to kick off with Mookie Betts is okay.
Yay.
I think there was a little bit of concern over the last few weeks that he's had some sort of mystery illness which has stripped an awful lot of weight off of him. Now, I'm sure it was horrible for him, but if he could have passed it around a little bit, I wouldn't have argued. But he's lost an awful lot of weight, but he has come back. He is hitting home runs, and he's already put a decent amount of weight back on. I think there was some genuine concern through elements of the media a week or two ago. This 2-week long wasting virus he seemed to have, but it does seem to have passed. He does seem to be on the mend. So. One of the good guys of baseball that I think people, sort of universally like, despite him being a Dodger. I think everyone wishes Mookie in particular well. So we're all quite glad to see he is back, and we get to watch one of the best of a generation play the game. So good job, Mookie is better, and he is on the mend and playing again.
Yeah, I will admit I was concerned when he said he'd lost as much weight as he did right before the season began. It's not ideal preparations for a guy who, isn't necessarily that young anymore anyway. But no, you're right. It's great. Like, Mookie's so fun, and I think if he played on a team that was as successful as the Dodgers that didn't have Shohei Ohtani, which I guess is part of why they're so successful, but he would be like the face of the sport, right? A lot more than he is, and I think it's credit to him that he just runs out there and puts up 6 wins every year, and we all kind of just take it for granted. Darius, give us your good.
Well, I'm going to go with Wilson Contreras eating his bat tape, which was one of the silliest things I've ever seen in my life. And what made it even better was that he didn't really seem to understand why he'd done it. They asked him about it after the game, and he came out with some explanation that like the pitch clock was counting down and he had to do something or he'd strike out, which he then struck out anyway. But that was the excuse he gave for just deciding to chew on his bat tape. So it seems to just been he panicked, he was running out of time, and he was like, I'm going to eat this thing that's hanging off my bat. That was his explanation. One of the more bizarre. Just Google Contreras bat tape, and the first thing you'll see will be Wilson Contreras. It's like a fruit roll-up or something. He just rolls it up and sticks it in his mouth, chews away. And I think he keeps it there for a while as well.
I did
no idea
see the video.
He doesn't know why he did it. It's absolutely bizarre, hilarious, only in baseball. Great
I think
stuff.
what concerns me the most, having watched the video, is that doesn't look like the first time he's done that. Like, that is a seasoned bat tape eater based on his body language there. Maybe this is just the first time we've actually noticed it. So yeah, that is a very, very odd one. Ever had the urge to eat bat tape, Rob?
Well, I thought, yes, oddly, sort of, yes. I've always imagined pine tar would be really sweet. So, and I've never tried any. I don't know if it's poisonous. But maybe we should get hold of some, because if it's covered in pine tar, maybe it's just got a kind of nice sort of sweet taste. And it's probably quite spongy and chewy, so like a kind of sweet gum. So why not? I'd give it a go.
That's a future piece of content that we need to make sure that we get. I will finish off our first round of goods by talking about Dustin May, who made his return to the mound last night for the Los Angeles Dodgers, which is great news. I think it was his first time on the mound since 2023, maybe even before then. He has spent a long time out, obviously recovering from Tommy John surgery, and then had a life-threatening issue at home. I'm forgetting the details of it now, but it was something...
It's a great one.
He was eating a salad.
Yes, and lettuce.
Some lettuce got stuck in his
back
esophagus.
Of his throat, right? Yeah.
And it cut his throat from the inside.
I mean,
literally ruptured his esophagus, and he nearly died from eating this salad, basically.
That's an extraordinary...
I've maintained salad is bad for you. For years I've been saying this.
Dog ate my homework excuse, isn't it? Oh, sorry, my salad was a bit scratchy, so I almost died from an esophageal tear. Anyway, it's probably not really a joking matter, given
the injury journey he's been on, and then to be like, oh, this will be safe, I'll just go out for dinner with my wife and have a salad. Nope.
Poor Dustin May, that you are truly cursed at that point. But anyway, fortunately, he made a full recovery, back on the mound, and effectively looked like his old self, didn't he? The sinker was sinking, the slider was sliding. I think he got through 5 innings of pretty effective baseball for the Dodgers. I'm not sure if he got the win, but they certainly won the game. So, yeah, he was electric, obviously, before he went down for Tommy John a few years ago now. Great to see him back on the field, and even better if he can come back and be anything close to that dominant self that he was back when he first came up into the big leagues. Plus, one of the great heads of hair in the majors. I think we can all agree.
Absolutely. 100%. Everyone loves a ginge.
Right, give us a bad, Rob.
David Bednar. David Bednar was optioned today or yesterday. he's very, very, very quickly moved, certainly in my head, from one of those phenomenal closing pitchers who was, right at the top of his game, and everybody like, oh, I wish we had a Bednar on our team. Like, oh, he's the new phenom, the relieving phenom. He's fallen from grace so hard and so quick over the space of a season and a half, to the point he's just been optioned to AAA, and that's kind of sad. Like this guy was great. Not only because he's on my fantasy team, that's one of the sad reasons, but you like this. You want to see relievers do good and stay good because it's so frantic anyway with the up and downs with them all. But this seems extreme, and I just there's not a lot of rhyme or reason. Like his pitches are still moving the way they used to be. He hasn't lost any velo, yet for some reason he's just gone from a low 2s ERA to high 5s and out of the blue. And now he's in AAA, and I think it's just sad to see from a guy who was exciting, genuinely exciting reliever, is now scrap heap and trying to recover his career, and that's a real shame.
You can never trust a relief pitcher, can you, Darius?
No, it's true. There is no trusting a relief pitcher. I mean, there's Mariano Rivera, I suppose, and that's about it.
I've heard of him.
Even Craig Kimbrell was the best pitcher of a generation for quite a long time, but now anybody sees Craig Kimbrell and they have to hide behind a pillow and stay there until he goes away.
Two pillows.
So yeah, don't trust the relievers.
Give us your first bad.
My first bad. Well, I'm going to tell Rob this isn't actually my first bad, but bad news, Rob. You can't eat pine tar.
Oh no, really?
It will make you quite sick. However, apparently the Finnish are into lots of tar flavoured foods, so you can get that tar taste. If you want to go to Finland, have that experience, then there's the good news. But don't eat baseball pine tar; it will make you sick. Apparently, says the internet.
Maybe I'll get the Mookie Betts weight loss experience.
God.
My actual bad. Shout out to Hannah Kaiser, friend of the pod, who's just started a Substack with Zach Kreiser, the bandwagon. But she points out that we now have a situation where a white man is running every baseball operations department again, except one. Dana Brown is the only non-white person running a department. So going from Kim Ang being the first woman, and we said, we're getting a bit more diversity, and then obviously in the context of the Trump administration and all their let's get rid of DEI initiatives, this is just another sort of side piece in that. But it's going to be more difficult to get diversity in a lot of places, I think, and this is not anybody in particular's fault, but as Hannah points out, it's not a great look that we have 29 white men running baseball ops departments. So hopefully some of that diversity can come back in the future, but just a bit of a sad state of affairs at the moment.
Yeah, it's a pale, male, stale sport at the best of times, isn't it, baseball? And this is definitely a step in the wrong direction after it looked like we were making good progress in that department for a while. So hopefully things will address, or people will address that soon. But good to have a bit of light shone on it. My bad is actually not really a bad, more of a sad. It's Lance Lynn retiring from baseball, which he did in a very Lance Lynn style, under the radar, without anyone really noticing. And I just think he's a bit of a last of a dying breed, or certainly, one of the last, a proper hoss of a pitcher who just chewed through innings and would give you reliability and consistency, basically just threw like 3 versions of a fastball and said, like, try and hit it. And actually at his best was really, really good. He was one of the guys I think who was probably worst impacted by the COVID-shortened season, because that came right on the heels of his best ever year with Texas. He pitched great in that COVID year, but obviously he was only able to throw 84 innings of really good baseball, and then was great again the year after. We probably missed out on a pretty dominant 3-year stretch from Lance Lynn, which is a shame. And he, obviously with the Cardinals before that, again had a reputation for being a real innings eater and a machine. The last couple of years, obviously not quite so effective, but still going strong at a very high age, and clearly decided, I'm sure he would have had offers to have a job somewhere, or maybe work in the minors somewhere, but decided he wasn't loving it anymore and was going to hang the cleats up. So hat tip to Lance Lynn, who will not be a Hall of Famer, but will be a Hall of pretty good pitcher, and I remember some guy's candidate in a few years' time. But he was a fun guy to watch when he was on form. Bring us back with a good, Rob.
Ooh, a good. The White Sox. Let's have a look at the White Sox. So the White Sox last year took 11 games to get to 2 wins, and they're already at 2 wins now, 5 games in. So I think we can fairly safely say that base is being pulled up a little. We know that the White Sox, as well as being horrific, were unlucky last year, and it seems that their luck has at least started reverting to the mean a little bit. So having the worst team in baseball slightly less bad can only be a good thing for baseball. Don't get me wrong, these guys are still atrocious. However, they sat on top of that league for a couple of days, on runs scored. So the White Sox possibly, very early, possibly not being record-setting dreadful, that's a good thing. Good thing for baseball, good thing for everyone. Well done, the White Sox.
Amen. Darius?
Yeah, I am going to take the Rays bullpen, in fact, and especially Mason Montgomery. The Rays bullpen went over a stretch over the, I think after the first game of the season, where they struck out 45 and issued no walks. 45-0 strike to walk ratio, very good. And Mason Montgomery is one of the Rays relievers. I've had mine in for a little while, one of my favourite little reliever sleepers this off-season. And he's come out throwing 100 from a wild arm slot. Just, the latest in a long line of, hey, Rays have got a guy, and now he's throwing high 90s out of the bullpen with filthy stuff. So, when you say, how did the Rays do it every year? This is kind of how they do it every year. And, pretty fun run to see. So, long may it continue.
I can tell you, whilst they have lost today, they had the early game. They have not issued gone another day. The bullpen has not issued a walk today. So that is another day.
There we go.
And another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 innings. 4 innings, sorry, without issuing a walk. So good stuff.
I should have caveated it earlier, shouldn't I? Don't trust a relief pitcher unless they're wearing a Rays jersey, in which case you probably can trust them, even if you've never heard of them.
But they will trade them as soon as they get valuable.
Yes, don't fall in love with them.
Replace them with someone you've never heard of.
Right, my second good is a young man named Kyle Tucker. Probably not news to our listeners that Kyle Tucker is good at baseball, but he is continuing to be good at baseball in his new uniform with the Chicago Cubs this year. And I'm shouting him out not just because he's off to a great start to the season. I think he's got the best swing decision metric of any hitter so far this season, which is a cool metric. He's also hit, I think, home runs in 4 straight games now. He's a monster. And it's great timing for him, not just because he wants to win games with the Cubs, but obviously because this is a walk year for him. And I think if he has a monster year at age 28 going into a winter as a free agent, he could be in line for a pretty large extension. We're probably not talking Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani money here, but he will potentially headline what's a pretty strong class. So plenty of reasons for Kyle Tucker to continue with his hot form and maybe earn himself, something close to $500 million in the off season. We will see how that plays out, but certainly not a bad way to go about your first week of the season if you're planning to make as much money as possible. Not such great news for Cub fans who hope to extend him because he's very quickly getting out of their budget range. Bring us home then.
Budget range.
I mean, true. He's not out their budget range. They're just cheap.
They're a very, very big market.
Let's depress everyone to finish then. What's your final bad, Rob?
I'm going with Jurickson Profar. Just got busted for taking shagging drugs. So Jurickson Profar has taken a fertility drug. He's been caught and given 80-day suspension. The fertility drug he took was called, here we go, chorionic gonadotrophin. Chorionic gonadotrophin. I think that was in Lord of the Rings. That is apparently it is something to do. It's a fertility drug, but it's used to suppress the use of other PEDs. All sorts of rumours about his link and friendship with Fernando Tatis, who obviously had his own drug suspension last year or a couple of years ago. So it's a real shame. We don't want to see a player who's finally come good and then have to start wondering, is that because he took shagging pills? Because nobody really wants to hear about that. It's depressing.
It is depressing, and obviously casts a bad light on his breakout, so to speak, year last year, where I don't think he gets the benefit of the doubt anymore. He claims he was clean and was tested all the time, but when this happens to you, questions come up.
And of course, they always say that. They always say, I didn't know it was, So I've got a little game for you, so I've got five chemicals written down here. Some of them are drugs that are on the MLB banned substance list, and some of them aren't. So put yourselves in the shoes of a major league player and see if you would know if you should or should not be taking some of these. So I've tried to write these down phonetically. So first of all, aminobenzoic acid. What do we reckon? Do we reckon that is a banned substance, or it's something else that they are allowed to take?
Banned.
They can take it.
You think they can take? Okay, right. Well, Darius is correct in this time because aminobenzoic acid is a key chemical used in personal lubricants. Go back to butt plugs again. Okay, so that's number one. So well done, Darius. You're winning on that one so far. Second, we've got heptaminol. Heptaminol.
Legal.
Banned.
Legal? You're saying legal? Banned. Darius is 2-0 here. Heptaminol is a blood pressure treatment, which is a banned substance in Major League Baseball. Number three, we've got glutarol dialide. Dialdehyde. Glutarol dialdehyde. Let's go with that.
Banned.
It's just one word.
Yes, it's one word. Glutarol dialdehyde. Yes.
It sounds like it should be to do with your glutes. I'm going to say banned as well.
Both saying banned. Well, you can take it, but it's probably not good for you because it's actually a key part of embalming fluid. So you can take that if you really want to, although not advised. Number four, we have Claubenzorex. Claubenzorex.
Okay.
I'm going to say banned. It doesn't sound like do you much good.
Yeah, I'm going to say banned too.
Okay, right. Well, you're both right this time. Claubenzorex is a Mexican appetite suppressant, but also has something to do with muscles and shit. I don't know. And last of all, then I've got perfluoronanoate. Perfluoronanoate. There we go.
Oh yeah, you can definitely say that. I have
of course. Yeah.
I'm going to say banned.
Banned. Okay. Well, I think this makes you a draw overall because Ben is right. You can take it. Perfluoronanoate is a key ingredient in Mr. Muscle. So where it doesn't give you muscles, it is in Mr. Muscle, the cleaning fluid. So there we go.
When
so
you say you can take it, you mean it's just not on their banned list?
It's not on the banned list. Yeah, you mean you shouldn't take it. Don't get me wrong, but you're not going to get a suspension for it. Maybe you're just going to vomit horribly. There you go.
That's what Mookie Betts had.
That's it. He took Mr. Muscle. He didn't read the label properly. Always read the label, everyone. Always read the label.
If I were a baseball player, I would simply never ingest anything and just die of starvation after 2 weeks.
Yes, there we go.
Where even were we? I think, Darius, we need a bad from you.
I'm bad. Somebody who has had a substance injected into their body is Mad Max Scherzer, who appears to have arrived at this stage in his career where he literally cannot do anything without a part of his body sending him to the injured list. It took one game and I think 3 innings. Somehow he says his injured thumb, which is what he's had the cortisone injection in, is why he came out with lat soreness. He says he's throwing the ball differently because of his thumb hurting, and so that's given him lat soreness. But at this point, it's a rich tapestry of injuries for Max. One thing goes wrong and then it makes everything else break. And he's one of my very, very favourite pitchers to watch, so it's just a bit sad that we didn't even make it like 5 starts into the season of a bit of vintage Scherzer before he went on the IL. I hope he can come back and, make 20 starts or something for the Jays and look a bit like old Max, but it does kind of feel like this is just the way things are now.
As a man who's recently converted to his 40s, I understand and sympathise with him. Everything hurts every morning.
Yeah, Max Scherzer is properly broken at this point, which is sad, but it feels like this might be the end. Well, that's depressing. My final bad is also depressing, but what changed there? It's the Colorado Rockies, obviously. Hilariously, they have actually got scoreless starts from all of their aging rubbish members of their rotation to start this year, which is great. Senzatella had the weirdest stat line ever against the Rays last week. Hernan Marquez actually looked pretty good on his return from injury, and Kyle Freeland, who cares? The reason that they're bad, though, is because despite all of that, this team is rubbish. I think they've won one game. They're not good, even when the starters are overperforming. So it's driving me nuts that they have Zach Veen and Chase Dollander sat down in AAA learning absolutely nothing when they could at least be getting some reps in at the Major League level and trying to be, future star players on this team. We know now that Major League Baseball are taking steps against service time manipulation. I don't think it's even that is the reason. I think they just genuinely think that these players need time playing on some stupid ballpark that is effectively the surface of Mars against players that aren't going to help them improve, just on the off chance that some guy called Nick Martini now becomes a star outfielder for the Rockies. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, if we're going to be bad, I want us to at least be entertaining and bad, and that for me means seeing some of these young players given a go.
Nick Martini is definitely one of those how is he still around players.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
I always had that moment where I was like, why is Nick Martini starting in right field for the Rockies every day? Like, what is happening?
This podcast is probably the main reason people realise Nick Martini's on the Rockies, because otherwise, why would you ever know that? Why would you need to know that? But he is, and he's starting every day, and he's batting clean-up some days.
Colorado.
Well, I think that just about does it for our podcast today. That was great fun, covered a lot of subjects. Thank you guys for the time. I will throw it to either of you to let us know if you're writing anything. Darius, I imagine you probably are.
I'm not writing anything, but lots of our writers are writing things. So just, go to batflipsandnerds.com. There's stuff going out all the time. Gav is doing a great job. And we've got a really big team of writers now. So we did lots of season previews. Gav has written about how the Twins have DFA'd their best season pitcher this season, who is Randy Dobnak. That's just, the kind of content you get out of Gav. Randy Dobnak focused content. Really plumbing the depths of the Twins roster for all the quality stuff. But yeah, lots of good things over on the website, so do go and check it out.
Yeah, seconded. They've just finished, obviously, the team previews for the year, but there's still some really great stuff going up there every day. There's a fun article by Alex Williamson on projections and the business of projecting, which is well worth a read, giving Russ a run for his money on the analytics side. So do check that out. Obviously, follow us on all the platforms. Give us a subscribe on YouTube, where we're trying to grow. And that's why we've got these, nice new cameras that I spent half the podcast trying to fix, so you couldn't hear me. But anyway, do give us a follow and a subscribe and a like. And we will chat with you in due course. Thanks so much for listening. Goodbye.